Get your day started right. From our shack to yours, this is Coffee and Ham Radios. We are live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Ladies and
Good
gentlemen,
morning, everybody.
Are live.
AP
Well,
made
hello.
it just in time. How's the PO this morning?
Nice. Yeah, he did.
Oh, we're just fine. Just fine.
Did he yell at you for
Make
having
a
too
nice
much toilet
puddle.
paper in your backpack again?
Yeah, listen, I had to, you can't see it, but I've been drinking this big old Mountain Dew from the gas station,
Holy
and I
cow.
had to go, I was like, I'm never going to make it to the show.
Empty the bottle
This
first,
morning?
then refill it.
Yeah, you need an empty bottle.
Yeah, you don't even have to move.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you can work with that mouth on that thing, but I can't.
I have talent, not dimensions. Talent. You're thinking in the wrong dimension there.
You can't just cut the top off too, son. I mean, you know.
Right.
So how was that happy hour last night? 2.5 hours on Jason's stream, guys.
It was, I got
man,
to
that's
say,
long.
it was a little long for me. My attention span was wandering. I was FT8ing like a madman during most of the stream. And,
I was
He was
watching.
taking
I
a
was
note
watching.
from Clubhouse. He's like, "We're going to end this now," and then a half an hour later, he's still talking.
I know.
I know.
Oh,
Well, Jason likes to. Oh, never mind.
listen,
I was
it's a
watching-
bunch
Nobody knows
of, it's
that.
a bunch of hams. They all like to talk.
I know. I was watching my Hermes
of
up on the screen up there, and I got this band. This thing that's like, shoot, the thing was this wide, man. I'm like, what the heck signal is that? You know, it was an AM, but it was AM broadcast from someplace, and I never get that at night. I mean, we do, but we get Japan and China, but that's usually early in the morning. And
Japanese
it's like they just
clear
turned something
channel.
off, huh?
Japanese Clear Channel AM station.
Yeah, this one wasn't. I was afraid to put it on the air last night because I might have got Jason a strike. You know.
I'd have been fine with that.
We're okay with that.
So we're here this morning. We're going to be talking about coax with our friends from ABR Industries, and
he's
here
here.
is Mr.
Yeah.
Chuck. How you doing this morning, Chuck?
They make really great coax.
Let's get some
That's what I use.
audio.
I've got some.
You guys hear me well enough?
Yep. Just getting you tuned up a little bit on our side. Good to go. How? So I already asked you how you were. You already said you were good. I can't do that again. That would be a faux pas on my part.
Sorry.
I'm just taking these off. All right.
Can you still hear?
I can still hear you guys well enough.
Okay, good.
Awesome.
So how long has ABR been making coax? I guess we start at the beginning, right?
If we're going to start at the beginning, ABR Industries was formed in 2010, but yet we've actually been doing it a lot longer. So a little bit of the background on us is we've been in business since 1989. My father had been selling wire and cable since the early 70s, and we formed a company back in 89 and did quite well with it for a number of years. Some people may know of it. It was Cable Experts.
Okay.
Okay. No, I did not know that.
2003, we decided time to maybe sell the business. So we decided to sell off the company, and it officially went through in 2005. At that point, Ross moved on, did their own beef just a little bit, and then we saw that things weren't going very well, and had a number of customers coming back to us kind of cheating to get back into the business. So in 2010, we turned down here in Texas to form ABR Industries. It took a lot of the things that we learned from the past, the things we done very well. We also decided to control our own destiny. So we actually tooled up everything internally and also with the mills, and did a lot of things that we thought was going to be better for our future. So kind of a longer route to get there, I guess, in the way of answering questions, but still, yeah, it was kind of how we did it, and it was fun. My father was in the business for the first 6-7 years, I believe. He has since retired, and as far as the business goes, Shannon is our president. We're woman-owned, and then myself and my brother Ben are partners in the business.
Oh, excellent. So I guess the other question is, what made you guys decide on coax? What was the, you woke up in the morning and you're like, I'm going to make coax today. How'd that go?
Yeah, it kind of a weird option. I mean, it sounds strange. doing wiring cable. It's not very exciting. It's a very old technology, but still, it was something that was probably born and bred more in myself and my brother Ben, in the sense that we had been doing it for so long and been so comfortable with it. And we had a little bit of outer lives, outside of the business, but we knew it so well. And the venture of building the assembly side of the business was really interesting, just because we could put a nice big investment into it and then turn it into, something a lot more. So instead of just doing coax, we do multi-conductors, we do outdoor cat cables, we're doing Helix products, we do Teflon products. In time, we'll do fiber. We're looking at that as maybe one of the bigger investments in the future for our business. So it's kind of the type of thing for us that it's allowed us to grow. And we've decided this is really to be kind of like a multi-generational company. And even Gen 3 is wandering around doing little things here and there. His nephews at this point, not fully into the business. They're thinking they should go to school, hopefully. But in all fairness, we've looked at this as something for kind of a long-term growth strategy and a family thing too.
Every so often, something blocks your microphone. Where's your microphone hiding?
Yeah.
Hold on a second. I think I have it right above my head here on this one. Better or worse?
That's it.
I don't think. Tap that mic. I don't think that's the mic you're on.
Is that not coming through?
Yeah, that is it.
It's coming.
Yeah, it's coming through.
Yeah. It's apparently real directional, and if you move your head the wrong way, it sounds like you're talking through a bucket of water.
Oh. Let's see.
I can't ask you any of the hard-hitting questions if we can't hear your answers,
How's that? Is that better or worse?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay.
But that's... So I guess the next question I have, where you mentioned Helix. What's the difference between Helix and coax?
Well, Helix, because it has a solid copper jacketing to it, is probably the biggest primary difference. Helix starts at a 1/4-inch product, goes into like the 1/2 inch and the stuff like that. That's more traditional. But for Helix, it's, the type of item that for hams, it's fine for repeaters. Using it at the home shack, unless you have a really long run, is probably overkill.
Yeah, you can't really bend it.
I can't imagine pulling something like thumb-sized Helix. Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, or bigger. I mean, some people
or bigger. I know. I'm just,
A lot of guys use it for 6 meter, right?
Yeah.
For the higher bands.
I mean, for the higher band stuff, there's things, satellite and stuff like that too. I mean, depending on the length of the run. But nowadays, the LNAs are so good in a lot of the devices that it's made up for some of the inefficiencies that the coax has a little bit. There's other components there that you can get that it's a lot cheaper. You can put a nice LNA and an amplifier in place of spending all this money for copper Helix.
What, you may not know this off the top of your head. I'm just curious. So, what would be the signal loss per 100 feet in some equivalent physical diameter Helix versus good coax, like an LMR 400 equivalent?
Sure. So, I mean, they're relatively close because it's the physics of the product itself and the dielectric that's involved. Gas-injected foam technology between Helix and most coax products is very close. So they're both around the 84 to 86 percentile range. In that regard, they're pretty much kind of sometimes on top of each other, in the sense that for 2 meters, Helix product is going to be about 1.4 dB per 100. Your traditional 400 product is going to be closer to about 1.6, 1.7.
Okay, so it's better, but not hugely.
Not huge there, yeah.
When you're running things like bidirectional amplifiers and a repeater, though,
right,
it makes all the difference in the world, because a foil has a natural gap that's going to form as it's wrapped and then braid coming over it. That's going to create a capacitance gap that, for bidirectional amplifiers, gets noisy on the ground. So that's where you'd want Helix. That's another thing that you clearly really would like to say, hey, Helix can do a better job. If you're not using a BDA and you're running separate lines, then God bless, and you could use the 600 or other products in there very successfully.
So on my SDR scanner, should I run Helix all the way 20 feet to my antenna?
You can certainly do that and have a lot of fun playing around with that.
He's talking about one of these guys.
Yeah, I know. You might be dragging your SDR and everything else around
Right.
when you're setting it up, but you can certainly use that type of thing. No, in all fairness, it's really kind of hard to explain to people. Also, sometimes there's no bad coax, because once you get your signal out and you're making contacts and you're happy, there's a little bit of ignorance is bliss, but the point is you're getting out there and doing something.
Right.
So you're connecting with people out there, and
start with working and then get better is what I always tell people.
Yeah, I mean, you can always upgrade your system. You can grow your system. You don't have to go with, we preach sometimes you don't have to go with the biggest, baddest cable on the block to get started. I mean, you have the money that you're investing in a hobby, and you can grow with that hobby. We strongly encourage people looking at it that way. Just because, over time, you may say, hey, I like 6 meters, but there's a very limited time of the year that I can use it.
That's
right. I mean, it's kind of some of those things that's interesting to explain, and you don't want to kill the enthusiasm. You don't want to shatter the excitement of it, because newly licensed hams, we even notice there's a lot of them that get started, and then after a year, there's a little bit of an effect of I moved on to something else, or I'm not quite as enthusiastic about it, and that's hard because we're hams ourselves. I mean, my father was licensed in the 50s. I was licensed in the 80s, and we've been around it for so long that we'd rather see people stay in it for the long term and find ways of their enjoyment from there.
Right.
I got a question.
There's
Go ahead and do that if you want.
Dave has been a member for 13 months. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Dave. Go ahead,
Dave.
Jeff.
A lot of the guys around me now are talking about it's not LNR 400, but it's 400. It's the clear. It usually has like a clear thing. Do you guys sell something like that too? It's supposed to be super low loss, and it's smaller than regular
RG 400, right?
RG 400. Yes.
Yeah, that's the Teflon type. That's the PTFE material. We do sell that.
What's the advantages to that? I mean, it's pretty high low loss, right?
Not exactly. It's one of those things that kind of a little bit of urban myth on the sense that it's PTFE. Its insertion loss is actually the same as running a 195 product. So it's actually a little bit higher loss technically than running, your standard 240 Ultraflex or 8X material. The nice thing about PTFE products is 400 specifically it's a double silver shielded product. So the shielding is phenomenal on it, and being a stranded product is great. The other beauty of it is it can handle well above legal limit for a lot of hams. So it is a really good usable product. Some people have a tendency of liking to use the 400 product when they're putting it in with inline filters and stuff like that, just because it helps with low noise and keeping the noise down in the application of running a bandpass filter or something else in line through it, and works out quite well. We actually use 400 and actually the fabulous coaxial wraps.
That's what I bought some for. It was for that exact thing.
Oh, look at him. Clarence digging down there, finding his toroids.
No, so
Yeah, it was.
I bought the 400.
Calm down.
Yeah, I bought the 400 specifically for use inside the shack. And I do a lot of stuff where I run signals into like scopes and spectrum analyzers and stuff. Mm-hmm. And the double shielding is exactly why I got that, just because I wanted to minimize any interference I might get from LED lights or whatever, just stuff I have going around in the shack.
I just thought that was something that a lot of people may not know about, and I just kind of found out about it.
Well, yeah,
same thing for chokes.
Yeah, if you run that through your chokes, and if you run that in the shack, then you can also cut down on RF possibly affecting other stuff in the house.
Mm-hmm.
That's what these guys are all doing.
Changing the channel when the old lady's watching Real Housewives of Omaha or something.
Yeah, I mean, we use a lot of it, as was mentioned, for test cables. We do actually sell a lot commercially on the test cable set. We also use a lot of 400 for the broadcast market. They use it particularly.
Andy Cowley has been a member for 17 months, and Andy is in every ham radio stream that has ever been in the history of ever.
Sometimes
you,
before we are. Before
Yeah.
we even make it.
And we
That
like
comes
Andy
back.
Cowley a whole lot. Thank you, Andy. Appreciate it, brother. Let's give you. Andy, thank you.
So Chuck, let's kind of start at the beginning. If I was a brand new ham, I guess where we'll start is, what coax should I get as a starter coax? And then let's talk about why I would want to get a different kind as I grew up and got better at being a ham.
That's a good question. So for a lot of the new hams, looking at what they're running, most hams are generally 100 feet or less. So length is obviously always important for insertion loss. What they're running, if they're running it either through like an HT or they're running, say, a basic HF setup, then we usually try to look at the 240 Ultraflex, the 1/4 inch, the 8X replacement, and start there. It's reasonably priced. It's a good entry level product. They can use it from everything for the home ham shack. They can take it along when they get involved maybe in POTA. They can cut it up into little pieces later on and make jumpers out of it. So it's probably the easiest all-around coax to introduce people to. It's a good way to get started without breaking the budget too much, just because the best way to look at it is to take the product and say it's highly flexible. It's not going to cost me a whole lot of money. You can go under the builder. That's actually a fun piece if you want. And so what it does is there's a lot of private label products. So I'll explain some of the nomenclature. But if you click that drop down on the options there.
So I can click it, but you won't be able to see it. Inside I've got ABR 400, 600, 214, 393.
So just take the 240-UF, and that's the product there. And then you can click on the cable overview. It'll give you a little explanation on the coax.
There we
Tell you
go.
about the different colors, tells you kind of the installation, frequencies it's rated for, environment.
That is slick.
Gives you a few ideas then as far as all the connectors, because we're not expecting everybody to know what these connectors also look like. So one of the fun things about this is that the configurator allows people, when you pick your connector, it shows you a picture of it.
Nice.
As newbies, like I said, we're not expecting people to know. However, because we follow a lot of commercial pieces in this too, PL259s go under the UHF family, because there's UHF males, PLs, the SOs, which are the UHF females. So there's several different options that we can show with that. But the point is to kind of make it a visual tool as much as possible for people to get exactly what they want. And so
Scroll down, Steve. Personalized heat shrink tubing marker.
that has become a real popular option. When my father first got started, we found a lot of people,
That's cool.
if you didn't put your name or call sign on the thing, you weren't getting it back after field day.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
That was one of the things
Price.
to do that. And that's the product, set up with the ferrites. The funny story is we were always selling ferrites to the government, and then hams were, saying, hey, what about us? Because we're having common mode issues. So we opened the doors, opened the floodgates, and that's actually been a nice add-on sale for us. Stuff as
Nice.
far as products go too. But that 240 product is the easiest, most all-around product to get.
So how does this compare to 213, RG213?
Well, that's where it's interesting, is that the gas-injected foam, because it's a third less loss than the old traditional chemical foam types, it's actually only about 10 or 15% off of where 213 sits today.
Wow.
That's the other beauty of it, is the product itself can almost be as low loss as a solid poly like 213. 213 we still sell a lot to the government, and it's a nice high powered product that people can sit there and use. And they can set it up for their shack that way too. But the 400 Flex is probably pretty much cannibalized most of that, and that's the same size as that 213. That's the highest level replacement that we've offered today.
So we've got the 240. We've go ahead, Chuck.
I bought that 400 Flex, and I almost started carrying that instead of RG8X because it seemed easier to work with than. It didn't like want to twist on you or anything when you wound it. I couldn't believe how flexible that stuff was. It's actually on my tower now on all my joints for my Yagis and stuff because it has to move, right?
Yeah.
That stuff is awesome.
So,
and you guys make that in everything though? You said the 240. So the 240, how's it versus RG8X?
So the differences come is that we do a 19 strand center versus a traditional 7. So that's how we make it as flexible as we can.
Okay.
The foam is what's known as a gas injected foam. So it's a nitrogen fill that goes through the foaming lines. So it helps the expansion rate a little bit and creates deeper air pockets. So the velocity goes up from there. It's a double shielded product. It's a foil and a braid. The old traditional 8X was just a copper braid. And then since we're playing with pennies then at that point, all of our jackets that we've standardized on are all UV resistant and suitable for direct burial.
Nice.
Okay.
Very cool.
So
it's a good replacement then.
yeah, we've made it where people don't have to guess. You can bury it directly. You can put it out in the sun. It's a 20-year life cycle testing that's done on a jacketing. We actually do quite a bit of it just because we have to age products for government and other applications. So we've done quite a bit to kind of make it as, I guess, bulletproof as possible.
Right.
Direct burial is a huge thing because, even if you don't, that's awesome.
I mean, if you've got, your home is anywhere near the ocean, the salt
Right.
is just going to start to break things down.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think the soil too, in a lot of places, is fairly
it is
acidic, I think, or alkali. I can't remember which one, but
it's the alkali. Yeah.
alkali will chew up the coax.
Mm-hmm.
You almost sound like a scientist there, Jim. You
Well,
were saying
I
that
put mine. I have on direct burial rated cable. I got RG213. I think I got it from another vendor.
you just got to bury it.
Because I was ignorant, but I put it in. I ran mine in conduit. I ran it through 2-inch conduit, so if I have to pull it out, I don't have to dig crap up either.
So you were mentioning the 240 replaces the 8X, and is that because of the double shielding on it, or are you guys moving away from 8X, or what's the story?
So the old chemical foam 8X, the expense of running that versus running the 240 is almost exactly the same. Like I said, it's just the nitrogen portion of the fill. So we've pretty much said we're pretty going to stick with the 240 product as the standard. We do some of the old traditional 8X for a couple of customers that just definitely wanted the old style with the old braid. But to be honest with you, that's product that we send overseas. We send it actually over to Europe. There's just a couple of holdout customers that do it that way. They're not saying the other product's bad. It's what they're used to. And that's what their application is. And we're not bound to change it. I mean, here we'll probably talk you into the 240 pretty easily when we tell you about the improvements and everything else. So
Yeah, I've got
we were talking
most
about
of mine's 8X that I bought years ago from you guys, but the 240 looks pretty nice.
Yeah, we were talking about where to start. So we start with the 240, and then we're growing. Why would I want to switch away from the 240? And maybe I have a special band in mind, or a special contact, or distance run. What would be a good reason to switch?
So the two reasons are your power and your length. Your frequency is a component of it, but it's easier to start with those two things first. For HF, 240 is a really good product, but it's going to get warm when it gets up above 800 to 1,000 watts. It's not the type of product that's going to burst or set on fire or anything, but it's going to start getting warm, and the dielectric is going to start separating from the center conductor. So that's generally where we say, okay, let's grow and make it a little bit bigger. In some cases, that is the 213 product. Solid poly dielectrics handle the heat better than the foams. They handle the heating and cooling. So it's always a great product if you're running a linear just because of that. But the 400 Flex is nice because it's an easier all-around product. And then in that case, your lengths get longer than 100 feet, you get up to 150, 200 feet, your insertion loss start to make a difference. Go for it. If you're turning over and saying, hey, I really want to get into using it for 2 meters and 70 centimeters and start doing other things there, then it's going to clearly make a difference as well. It's the type of thing, though, that is kind of leapfrog because it's harder for new hams to understand that their privileges, because it starts so high, but yet they're working more with an HT or a mobile unit to start off with, that running 400 gets a little bit difficult. And so it's easier to kind of talk to them a little bit and then help them through the application. But as you grow, you got a satellite system at home you're setting up, run 400. I mean, you're looking at, like we were talking about, the 6 meter, and you're trying to squeeze every watt of it out the door. Look at that too. So those are definitely components to try to look at.
So Forkup's asking, is the 240 fine to sit in the Texas sun for years, and how many years is that?
It's a 20-year life jacket. It gets tested. It gets tested by a couple of different companies. Let's see here. UL does a little bit of the testing on the jacketing, and then we do it through a few other places as well.
So 20 years in the direct sun.
In a direct sun. And then
Nice.
Texas. So he's asking specifically about the Texas
Because
sun.
they have a
Well,
different
Texas sun is bigger.
Yeah, I think it's different.
Well,
Actually,
it is
to be honest
bigger
with you,
than the sun in Wisconsin.
Yeah, we actually, the radiation gets tested against the equator.
Yeah,
So,
there you go.
If you're ever curious, that's kind of the standard that they measure against when they do those tests. So
Nice.
somebody else asked if there's squirrel-proof cables. I'm going to answer that as yes, because we actually braid a 304 stainless steel onto these coaxes for the oil and gas industry. Because when they're putting the pipes in with the RFID cables or the sensors, they cut through the cables, and so we do a stainless steel wrapped cable for those applications.
Take that, you little gophers.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
And that's
I need about
exterior
100
jacket
feet of that.
instead of the UV resistant Teflon.
It's still built as a standard product, and then we do the additional wrap on there with the stainless steel.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's on the outside of the cable. It's not inside of the jacket.
correct. It is on the outside, and yeah, it's interesting. I've got a piece of it here at home hooked up, and you can see the animals sitting there just standing on it from time to time. But unfortunately, the oil and gas industry has very weird testing, and for this one, they decided to use a forklift to run over the cable several hundred times to see if they could crush it.
That's heavy.
It was heavy. It's a fun product to work with, but it definitely takes a hacksaw to cut. So
did it survive the forklift torture test?
it did. Yeah. We've actually done quite a bit with it, and they've been very happy with it.
I got one more question for you, a little bit more on the technical side, but I wanted you to maybe explain the pros and cons of a solid core versus a stranded core.
Sure, because that's actually a pretty actually it's kind of interesting. Solids are about 10% less insertion loss than stranding, and the reason being is stranding has a capacitance value that's associated with it, where it becomes slightly higher to strand because of the way these strands are overlapped and matched together based on the skin effect. So generally, you want to get around 24 to 30 picofarads. And when you're testing the cable itself, the line monitors check for those different things. And when they're running it through, stranding is always technically just slightly higher. So stranding will give a 10% higher insertion loss. For some people, if you're running coax as a straight line just directly to a vertical antenna and it's not going anywhere, then I would say that sometimes solid may be a better deal for you, because the solids are copper coated aluminum, and aluminum is less expensive than pure copper itself. The strands are pure copper, so they're going to be higher to go with a copper stranded product than going with a solid. So it's actually
Trying to
really
get
just say, hey, this is a good product to do too.
if you're trying to get coax to take over to the scrapyard to turn in for dollars, you want the stranded, definitely.
You want your stranded, yeah.
Yeah.
Don't
So
give anybody
when you say
any
10%,
ideas.
when you say 10%, you mean like a half a dB or so? Is that what you're?
It's not always directly that direct of a value. Sometimes just a couple tenths of a dB. In all fairness, so it's really not probably very noticeable for a lot of people. But if you're getting up closer to a gig, because we sell a lot of the solid centers to the guys for the 2.4 or 5 point the higher frequency stuff, and so for the HF bands for the ham side of things, it might be hard to notice. VHF, UHF, yeah, you could notice about a 0.3 to a half a dB. Especially at the 70. I mean, once you start picking things off there, it'll start to sweep and it'll look different.
Per 100 foot?
Yeah.
Yeah, per 100 foot. So, yeah, unless you're running
I mean,
my UHF antenna, my UHF and VHF antenna is like 20 feet cable run.
So our buddy Lee here asked a question. He said, exactly what product is the coax choke cable?
The one that I showed off was the 400, but I mean, we can put chokes on literally everything. We've got a wide variety of different sizes. The standard choke that we offer is a Series 31 in the system. It's rated from 1 meg up to 300 meg. Common mode choking is probably more critical up to 100 megahertz. So realistically, just the HF side of things, 2 meters, you might notice a slight difference of it. But beyond that, sometimes it's generally very hard to measure.
So you showed a wrapped toroid, but you also have beaded cables.
That's correct, actually. I think I put the little beaded guys right here. So this is just with a 7, it maxes out for the noise floor, about 30 to 40 dB of isolation. These are popular just because. They got
The form factor, right?
Right to the SO, and you just plug and play.
I like that.
Do you see better performance out of the toroidal core though, right, than those sticks?
If we're setting it to a particular wrap for a frequency, then yes, absolutely. The sticks are more of a general common mode piece. The toroidal the way they can be wrapped, you can do a little bit of a cutoff. So you can have it where it can perform usually a lot for the HF bands. Generally speaking, they can work 160 is sometimes tough, depending on how the size of the toroid, because some people mistakenly grab the smaller ones, but reasonably you can get it working up to about 30 meg, and then it'll start to cut off at about 40 to 50 meg and drop off.
Yeah, I've always had better luck with the toroids than with the beads, but that's just me.
And your beads and your cores are both mix 31?
As a standard, actually, we do all the different mixes. We do like a 43, which is kind of an intermediary rating, and then 61s that go up to 1 gig, and then they start to drop off. We do a lot of toroids for other testing, test labs and stuff. So don't be afraid to ask, because we do actually a toroid on 214, just to give you an idea, guys. 25-foot section with a toroid bead every foot for a lab, and they're testing cell signals and stuff with it, and I mean, it's insane, but it's just as crazy as you can get.
Chuck,
so Lee's
what was
asking,
that?
he's getting more specific. I don't know if Jim's saying the same thing or not, but
That
the wrapped cable that you held up that had the toroid core with the multi-wire through it that was kind of copper colored. Lee wants to go buy that right now. Where do we find that on your website?
Unfortunately, this isn't found directly on the website. It's something we actually still quote separately.
Okay.
The only reason why is the site is going through, since I've been there the or since I've been back, the third generation of some updates. This product will be on there soon enough, and the reason being is we're offering it in the 400, but we're actually we have a couple of hams testing it with the 223, which is the PVC version of the 400. It's a silver product as well, and they've been very happy with it. So we're probably just going to offer a few different flavors to start off with.
So that's RG 400 and a 240 43 core.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. This one doesn't have the crisscross, and the only reason why is because when we do the cross section of it, it sets the cutoff a little bit lower frequency than we like. We sell this one to the government, so that's the only reason why we do this. But most of them will have like a cross section on there.
So Lee, I think I got it for you. It's an RG 400 cable, and it's a 240 43 toroid.
Mm-hmm.
Lee is sad. I mean, he's like apparently he's on the website clicking stuff right now.
He's
You
looked
can
on the
call
site,
and
I
order
didn't see
it.
it.
You can
calling
He's
call-
pulling
Shannon
a
right
gym.
now.
Yeah. He's pulling a gym because he's ordering crap during the stream.
Yeah.
I have done that.
No way. You've
Shut
done
your
that?
mouth. Yes, I have.
Like,
All right, so we got a question
about
from
every other-
Tim Stat here. Tim saying, speaking of insertion loss, what are the best connectors to use, or is there not enough difference?
For most of the amateur stuff, there's probably not a whole lot of difference. It really comes down to sometimes preference a little bit, and I'll just say it as such. PL259s, there's several flavors out there that we offer, which means we solder always the pins. We're very comfortable. We like the conductivity and the connectivity of it, and the solder that we use is a non. It's a Rojas blended product. So we're very comfortable with that. But commercially, we crimp a lot. And the reason being is we have a commercial crimper. I mean, we've got a 2-ton press. That's the process that we use in there. However, there are some people that are traditional and they like soldering the braid. So we still offer a soldered braid. And
You don't see a nickel's worth of difference between the two, really?
Electrically, we test them. We don't see anything that's different. The only thing that is slightly different is because of the way the crimp body fits together, there is one less turn of threads that are on the PL version that we have as a crimp version versus the solder version.
Okay.
And so,
faster.
So somebody just,
That's right. Speed connectors, Chuck. That's right.
Yeah, that's a speed connector.
so somebody just feels really comfortable with it, and it's not a problem. I mean, we're more than happy to service it, and we want you to be comfortable. We really do.
It's all about comfort in ham radio.
Phil has been a member for 14 months. Phil, thank you very much. We all
Thanks, Phil.
appreciate it for watching our shenanigans.
It's hard to believe we've been at it that long.
Yes. It's been like
14
3 years
months
now.
Shoot, I've been here 14 or 18 months, I think.
Can't believe
Yeah, we
we
know.
made that mistake. So,
Well, the Telemundo girls are under contract to another channel, so.
Yeah, wait till it runs out.
There's actually a lot that goes into actually picking and choosing a coax. I had a buddy that was running a really long piece of we call it gas station coax, or that was 58 RG 58, and he was using it on 2 meters, and I had to have a giant argument with him about the amount of insertion loss he was having, and he was saying he was getting great SWR with his cheap antenna, but it was really getting masked through the insertion loss. Because I think it was 100 feet, maybe it was 50 feet of RG58.
Well, and that's actually that's another good point, is that a lot of people, when they check their systems, they check their VISWAR, and they say, "Oh, it's good. I got a 1-to-1. It's flat. It's great. I'm happy." And the other side of that is check the insertion loss. That next step, and that's where it can be more confusing for people. In the sense of, understanding, okay, my insertion loss, oh, gee whiz, I'm, losing half a dB, I'm losing a dB. In some cases, it's okay to lose 3 dB on UHF with a 400 series cable. It's not unusual to see that. the gains that you have that you can make up in other areas through the antenna and through an amplifier or other things that you could do to your system can compensate for that. And you can still put out a good, decent signal and get great results. So, but people can get real hung up on insertion loss. So
Yeah, I think that we were looking at around 6 dB of loss in this particular setup. And folks, that's why the the nano VNA is so important, right? You can easily measure your. Go and roll your eyes, Jim, but you're wrong, son.
We knew
it's
this was coming.
It's very easy to measure
Every
insertion
show,
loss
if
with
you
a
had
device like
Tiny
that.
SA or Nano on your bingo card,
And now Ape's made it so famous that everybody wants to do it. So
right? Ape is copied
it's
by many
affordable.
YouTubers.
$50
Radio
for a
and
nano
live.
VNA versus 300 for a whatever.
300.
True.
Shoot, son.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't
Without a
have one.
screen and a power plug, maybe, but Chris Radio and Live, thank you for your membership. We appreciate
Chris.
it
thanks, Chris.
very much. $300. That's so precious.
A little early in the morning, Lee.
Coffees. Lee meant coffee.
Yes.
in all fairness, at least having some test equipment is better than none.
Right.
Right.
I know, right?
And in all fairness, I think that was, at least just testing with the old SWR meters and stuff like that, and running into a dummy load, and a lot of that stuff it can also be quite expensive. At least there's some way of getting some visibility and people seeing what's out there versus just flat out guessing.
Oh, Chuck, I don't disagree with him. I just don't want to make that head any bigger than it already is.
Right.
Right.
These guys are mean.
Exactly.
Mean.
Me.
KK6USY, Chuck, do you have one of those old bird meters? You look like the kind of ham that would have a bird meter.
I do not. You talking about me? I don't have one.
Yeah,
no.
it was.
No.
Because I was thinking if we can get the bird and the VNA and whatever that thing is that highfalutin Jim over there can afford with his fancy full-time job, and we'll have a VNA off one day.
It's called a real job.
I've got a
real job.
Daiwa, which is really good.
We all got
Yes,
a
sir.
Daiwa.
So ABR, Chuck, what
Those are
test
good.
equipment do you guys? I mean, I imagine it's pretty fancy.
We've got a couple different VNAs out there. Copper Mountain makes some good products, and there's actually the VNA that we have on that product goes up to 18 gig, and then
Wow.
we have another one from Tech, which is kind of the more traditional one that we use more often because it's a little bit faster and it actually has more points, and that's just a 6 gig VNA. So it gives us a lot of flexibility when it comes to testing, and then we do have a network analyzer from Agilent, so that goes more towards our commercial guys because we actually do some semi-rigid products. Like I said, we've grown quite a bit from the old days, but it's one of those things that as we've gotten into other things, those other test equipment pieces have been kind of necessary. But the 6 gig VNA is, like I said, probably it's nice because it's so fast and it's so easy to use. So
That's awesome.
and then everybody's doing high pot and a continuity test on their connectors when they're putting it out there. And the reason being is we're checking the breakdown voltage to make sure the connector holds up. So we run a 10 kV test on those just for a couple milliseconds, just to make sure everything's good to go.
Our friend Jason's asking about you guys selling grounding braid, but you also sell some other grounding products, right?
The braid is probably our most popular ham product. I mean, everybody loves braid, right?
Oh, look at
That's a
that.
nice looking braid.
That is
It's tiny,
pre-tin
yeah.
with a connector on the end.
Yeah, it's-
Yes.
So the braid is probably, like I said, one of the most common pieces people see synonymous for us, but we do some heavier grounding wires. We can do some stuff off of the ground rods for people and things of that nature. We do some commercial grounding cables too. So like some of the multi-pole, like the 2 and 3 and 4 connection grounding pieces for the towers. So grounding's not a very exciting business.
People get worked up about it fast.
Oh
though.
my goodness.
they do.
It's like a religious discussion.
Do you guys do factory tours at all?
Of the facility that we're in, yes. Unfortunately, the bigger factory where the cable comes out of, no, just because of our NDA. There's a lot of other products they build for other people, and we've got about a 40-year relationship partnership. In some cases, we bought some tooling over years and stuff, but in our facility, the door is wide open. If you came in, you placed an order, you wanted to stop by, we're more than happy to walk you through and show you. I mean, one of the hardest things to explain to people is we've got all this equipment, and that really does help us quite a bit. But we're also more than happy to show you when you're at field day and you get stuck, how do you fix what you got?
Right.
You know, how do you get yourself back on the air? How do you do that, easily, quickly? What tools do you use? And it's important just because we're looking at it as, your whole adventure is playing radio, right? And there are so many things that can work down with. You can have your connectors come apart, something could get pulled or jerked or yanked around. Bird could have just chewed through something. Some other animal could have gone through it, and you want to get on the air because there's a contest going on. So it's always good to show people how sausage is made, at least from that standpoint.
So you have the machines that actually extrude the coax in that facility?
No, not in that site. No, that's
Okay.
The plant has all that stuff, the extrusion and the wraps and stuff like that on it. We're just where I'm at is just doing the cable assembly business.
So you're
That's
talking
cool.
about putting the ends on the connectors and doing
Correct.
that green shrink wrap thing.
Yeah, I mean, everything is surprisingly for everybody automated. We really don't hand touch anything from a standpoint of using a hand process, except for
That's
actually
good.
stopping the
Humans
pen.
are dirty.
I mean, even the the cable coilers and everything else are automatic now. So you plug it in, type in the machine how long you want it. It will cut, strip, and wrap everything into a nice, neat coil.
So if I'm going portable, what's the portable coax you'd recommend for an HF station? So Parks on the Air.
So that's where it gets interesting. So the 240 is a really good product, but for some people, if you're backpacking, it may get a little too heavy or cumbersome. And so that's where you might want to look at the 316 product. And that product has kind of taken on a life of its own because it's a 0.1 inch OD, but because it's a Teflon product, it's hard to crush. And it's real easy because you can put your BNCs, your PLs, whatever you want on there. You can put ferrites and away you go. So makes it a nice lightweight piece. And it's only a few ounces when it's done. And as far as the insertion loss goes, just kind of getting back to that a little bit. I mean, it's a dB or less at 25 feet. So that's kind of the other beauty of using something simple and lightweight like that.
Right.
It's much better than the 74. I don't know if you guys sell 74 or not, but a lot of folks will just buy the RG74 because it's so light and flexible, but I think it has higher loss.
It's a little bit higher loss. It is an old PVC product. The other thing about 316 that's kind of nice, like I said, is because of that Teflon being crush proof. You can do it in a door jamb. You can set it out through a window. You can get crazy, and you can put colors on there. Yeah, you found the color builder. So this is actually one of the new tools where
That's
you can
cool.
actually put any of the color on the wraps. I think that's actually when we started talking at the Ham Fest with somebody. I forgot who it was, but yes, we are now doing a wide variety of colored wraps. And that's becoming really easy to see what's going on.
I like that idea, especially if you're outside somewhere. Instead of the black cable being invisible in the on the ground or wherever, you can.
Yeah.
So somebody doesn't trip over it.
Mm-hmm.
And pull your radio off the table, Shane.
Is the 316, is that double shielded or is that single shield?
It is a single shield. It is a silver product though, but it is a single shield on it. So
Nice.
yeah, it would get a little too bulky. I mean, there is a double shielded 316 version, so but it's something that we use more for the higher end audio market. That's the only place we've really seen it been very successful. So
Tom's asking about the color choices, and we've got red, purple, army green, green, blue, yellow, and orange. So I'm guessing the army green is kind of like a grass color to blend in, and the other green is like a high vis green.
it is. It is.
Okay.
The army green came literally from the military. Just they took our cables and they were spraying them green. Okay, so it was an easy fix there. And they were taking the connectors and they were spraying them black. Because out in the field, you don't want a big shiny connector when you're trying to hide. Right? So we actually do black anodized connectors now for that.
Oh, wow.
The purple, we actually joke in the office, ladies love the lavender. We actually have a lot of female hams that love the purple.
Nice.
It went towards a couple school colors when it started out, and we kind of did it more as, hey, if that's what you want, we can do it. But it took on a life. Yeah, it was kind of fun. So
clearly that's LSU purple.
Actually, it was Northwestern.
Woo.
Sorry,
I'm just trying to start a fight.
Yeah,
Big Ten.
So, yeah, guys. I grew up in Chicago, so good luck with me. But
yeah, I thought that accent was Northern Illinois somewhere. I'm from Kankakee, so yeah.
There you go, bingo.
Ape's going to mention VNA, and I'm going to mention Kankakee. So.
You haven't mentioned your flex yet, so we're still waiting on that.
We said flex enough times with cable, so I mean, I don't want to
So
flex.
you're
I don't want to
covered.
flex too much, right?
me
We've
neither.
dropped the F word plenty of times already.
There's a
So on my
four-letter word that
flex
starts with F.
radio, what is the best cable to run in the shack from my flex radio stack to the pass-through out to the antenna?
So
On my
You know
flex
what? I
radio.
just sell it. I just sell it.
Right.
Forget
Get a
it.
Hermes. Right, Chuck?
Moving on up.
Moving on down. It's not a race to the bottom, boys.
That's right. That's why you buy a Hermes.
Spend less money, get less radio.
This is what happens over here, Chuck. So,
Yeah.
We argue. We're hams.
Chuck,
That's what
well, see,
I have to be honest with you, if you guys get together at a show, I think those foam sticks or bats might work quite well. For therapy.
we could
Nice.
Jello bat fight. That could
There you
bring
go.
in
Good
some
at-
cash.
We got to do that. The samurai wrestling suits.
Oh yeah, totally. I'll
could
win
see us
because
being
I outmass pretty much all three of you. So
I could see us being together and Ape hitting Jim, slapping Jim up by the back of the head, when he says something. Like on Gibbs
Stooges.
does to all the guys.
So we got Ham Till It Hurts asking about strippers here. This is not that kind of show.
What?
Do you
I
have
love
a
my
line
strippers.
a line of installation tools like crimpers, strippers?
We offer a crimping tool. A stripping tool, because all of our connectors aren't uniformly the same length as far as the stripping goes. We actually recommend just using a single point stripping tool. Paladin makes one. You can find them. They're called cable slitters. They can range and gauge everything down from the small stuff, the 316, to going all the way up towards, I think some of them get up to the 600 size in just one fell swoop. And the reason why a single point stripping is so nice, all of the stripping tools that we have are single point tools. At some point, I'll grab some videos and show kind of how that works. But it's kind of one of those things that becomes very easy to use. And then the blade on it doesn't wear down as quickly as some of the razor blades that are in some of those stripping tools. So the only reason why we don't put them on the site is some of the pricing, got a little crazy out there. They've come down, but they're generally about a $50 tool, which isn't bad. But they were getting up to closer to 100 for a while there. People were getting nuts on them. So, but if somebody needs some assistance, I can give them some direction there.
Nice. And I totally
Yeah,
got it. Oh yeah, my question was on ferrites. You've got a 3, a 5, and a 7. Why would I want to choose one over the other?
So that's the how effective the ferrites are typically. 3, we've found range anywhere from about 10 to 15 dB of isolation. And then we're using the 5, we get into the 20 to 25 dB isolation range. And then for the 7, we generally see about 30 to 45. The 30 is more on the 160, 80 meter side. Usually at about 40 meters, it gets to then that 45 dB of isolation. At that point, that's about as effective as most of the ham gear can get as far as a noise floor, as far as the aid for it. So that's generally where we wind up saying, hey, it's just better to stop just because there's diminishing returns. And, I mean, I had some people that wanted to put another 10, 12, and we just, we were trying to talk them out of it just because we put it on there, but didn't see, decent results. And the way we have them with the cord out and they're put together and they're connected, it became too fragile. And, we were worried about somebody just finding a way of breaking it.
Chuck, your mic went sideways again.
Oh, sorry. Is that any better or worse? Or
You're good now.
okay.
Good, yeah.
Did everybody hear that, or do you want me to go through that one more time?
Yeah, probably do
Maybe
it
do it
again
one more
because
time.
it was.
Not a problem. I mean, so 3 of them were 10 to 15 dB of isolation. Running 5 of them again was 20 to 25 dB, and then running the 7 was 30 to 40 dB of isolation. So that was pretty much where we saw it being most effective.
I mean, that's a lot. When you start talking 35 dB of isolation, that's a lot of isolation. That's more than enough, I would think, for amateur radio.
Yeah. I mean, you're trying to kill just about everything out there at that point, and that'll do it. Anything more than that, and it's not worthwhile.
Yeah, I've done a couple of videos where wrap in toroids to roll your own chokes and stuff like that, and everybody asks, okay, what if I got 15 wraps on there? How come you didn't test it at 15 wraps? And I'm like, my hands were hurting.
Yeah,
That's right.
He was cramping.
It's hard to wrap
fit.
those things, man.
It didn't fit. I gave up. It's okay.
So you showed a choke, and then you just had it wrapped all the way around. You didn't do the crossover. In any of your testing, do you see any benefit to the crossover other than keeping your cable lined up straight? Or
when we do the crossover, the intermediate section, it helps cut off a little bit as far as getting closer to about a 30 meg cutoff for the frequency. And it creates a little bit more efficiency when we do that. The only reason why we leave it open is, like I said, this was just because it's a government project and they're going a little bit higher frequency than that. So we did a couple samples with them many moons ago, and they were like, well, could we change up the configuration a little bit? And we played with this until we finally found the perfect recipe for them. But that crossover does seem to help from an amateur standpoint. So I would suggest and I think it's 15 wraps, and there's an intermediary wrap at wrap.
yeah, people get crazy about it. It's like the crimping versus soldering. Everybody's like, you should do the crossover. No, you shouldn't. And
You should crimp and solder. I mean, that's kind of, if you don't, you're a sociopath.
both,
I'm just
right?
saying.
But you crimped.
I crimp and I solder.
That's what I thought.
Not power
Just not at the
poles. I
same
just
time.
crimp them because I got a real crimper, and it's
Yeah, I'm starting to be a believer of those.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Chuck wants to talk about XT60s.
So
I like both, actually. But
the 240 is then the most popular one you sell for amateur radio. Is that?
By far now, yeah.
I wonder what mine is. Maybe it is 240.
I mean,
Well, I'm just thinking about because I'm not sure what I've got run inside. I know what's outside going to the antenna, but I'm thinking what kind of ghetto cable that I've set up in the house.
You got it at the truck stop.
I
It's at
did
50,
right
58.
down at the Flying J truck stop at the interstate. They had a special on.
Yeah, so you've got a lot of products. You say like 240, 316, 174, 213. What do those numbers actually mean?
We generally started with the RG numbers first. And then when the hybrids came out, we started following the OD. So 240 is in relationship to a 0.242. Instead of saying 242, we say 240. Instead of saying 0.405 for the 400, it's
400.
just 400. 600 goes the other way. Instead of saying 0.590, we say 600. It really comes down to just trying to make it as relatable as possible.
So when they say RG8 and RG213, those are real close in spec, but they're obviously not the same cable. So what does RG mean?
The RG was when the radio grade, the government was coming up with all these different cables, and that's where they kind of started from. And this was done back in the 1920s to actually about the 60s. They dropped the program. Actually, 8X Mini 8 was a branding campaign because they did drop the RG numbers before it got an actual official number. If I remember correctly, I think it was going to be in the 450s. But it was one of those types of things that as they kept doing it, they kept labeling it for different applications so that they could clearly identify this RG cable could be used for audio, this one could be used for video, and eventually could be used for the early networking computer applications. So that's kind of where it all stemmed from. And then we cheated and created hybrids. So we could change the center conductor, the foam and gas injected foams. The foam itself, the chemical foam, did have some acceptance there late in life, but the gas injected never went through an actual formal military approval with an RG number.
Okay. Stephen Reynolds is asking AB240 or AB240-UF. What is the difference between those?
The UF is probably more popular just because it's a stranded and it's easier to work with. The 240 is used more often than not, like I said, with higher frequencies, RFID, going on up from there, so 1 gig and above. Can certainly still use it for the ham stuff, but it's stiff.
Overkill.
And then somebody looks at it like they're trying to bend a piece of pipe.
Yeah.
We got a super chat here.
Yes.
Thank you, Tom. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Tom.
You got it there, buddy?
I got it.
I mean, I'm on it.
We know who Ape's favorite is.
Tom, thank you. Oh,
And one in
Steve,
from
look at that
CaHR
Andrew
NFL.
Jack popping in here.
You pull him up and I'll hit the button. Thank
Do
you,
it,
Steve.
son.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you very much, Steve. We had a couple other questions pop in. Where did it go? We'll do this one that's at the bottom here because I can see it easy. Why do some contesters use RG213?
So you're running a linear, you're cranking out as much as you can, and you don't want to worry about the cable changing as far as any of the characteristics. Because the solid poly, like I told you, can take the heat. So those guys just crank away on 213, and they're used to it. So it's okay.
All right,
I think
next one up is
the real reason is they read on an internet forum somewhere that was the one that they should use. That's
right.
And very much so.
Somebody's YouTube channel, right?
Right. Somebody
Jason
has an
said, I
affiliate
bought a
link.
bunch of ABR jumpers from Ham Radio Outlet, and they've all come with a tag with loss numbers. Are those actual specific to that individual jumper, or is that just spec?
That's just a general spec. All the jumpers, though, are tested. And then when the cable comes through, there's a lot of batch testing. That's where those fancy TDRs come in. We'll pull some random sampling off of it, in part because the data that we provide actually goes back to the mill, and it's what they use as their specification. That's how they validate their testing as well. But all the cables, when they go through individually, though, still, like I said, do that high pot testing. We're pretty comfortable at the point of when you're starting a run of 100,000 feet, we've checked it at several points, then everything else in between should turn out just fine.
Ain't no magic in the middle. That's right.
Right. But testing the connectors is more critical than at that point. So
We talked
Do you
about
have the
240
silver,
to get to
the silver plated connectors, or do you do that at all?
we silver center the center pins because the conductivity curve is better on silver. The bodies themselves, there is some PLs that are still silver plated, but that's pretty much about it. It's one of those types of things. The cost has become pretty prohibitive to a lot of it. Now, one of the beauties of the new facility we're in, actually, everything is enclosed and in a low humidity environment. So everything is sealed off so that the silver doesn't tarnish or anything else. But definitely, silver isn't bad. It's just expensive.
Yeah, I was gonna say the price of that is going up and up and up, and I also noticed the price of coax is going up a little bit, and I'm assuming that's just because industrialized metals for that kind of thing are in demand everywhere, right?
In part, yeah. I mean, coax itself in the States here, when we're getting coax, believe it or not, we actually have a high percentage of recycled components in there. So the cable itself, the copper, is about 30% recycled today. When COVID was hitting, we were actually closer to almost 50% because the mills weren't going down in South America. So that's where they were sitting there, kind of using a wide variety of that material. Then overseas with the platers, it got nuts with silver pricing. So that's where some of them came back and said, we'll do the pins, but we can't afford to still do the bodies themselves.
Yeah. So we've got a CB question coming up here, and I know that this is going to really upset KK6USY, and he's going to leave. What coax for a 10,000 watt, 1 second key down on CB? Asking for a friend, and he's talking about side boom.
So we're going to say RG393, which is the PTFE version of the RG.
Of course, he's got an answer.
And a really good fire extinguisher.
Right.
Yes.
Well, he lives in Louisiana
Really warm.
anyway, so I mean, it's like there's no electrical code down there and whatever.
Right.
They just make stuff up.
Hey, Chuck. Thanks for being with us. I got to go to work this morning. I'm retired, but I'm still working on yurts. So my side gig. Really appreciate you being here, and it was great talking to you at Pacificon.
Thank you, guys.
And the boys got some stuff to talk to you with. Maybe
see you,
afterwards.
Charles.
Maybe Tio. See you guys
Okay.
Get to
later,
Nintendo's
everybody. Thanks for
outside.
being here. Yeah. Oh yeah, I gotta get those too.
Really
So
long
Leah's asking-
bend radius. I didn't mean to cut you off. I saw that one. So the 240 is 1.5 inch bend radius. The 400 is 2.5 inches for the stranding. When we make it solid, just double those numbers. So solid 240 is a 3-inch bend radius, and the 400 solid is about a 5-inch bend radius.
Yeah. That 90-degree conduit may not work.
And then what's the difference between 24 240 and 218 XATC?
So we have internal part numbers for all the cables, so it makes it easier from our standpoint of when we produce it and the employees. So the 240 is the solid product. The 218X ATC was when my father first got started. He wasn't very good at naming products, and so he picked that one a little bit more random than I would have preferred. But still, that's kind of where the generation thing came in from there.
Awesome. I told you Chuck would leave when we started talking about CB.
Right.
I have to.
You know
hear
that
it.
working on the yurt thing is
That means he's going to go on a CB. You know, he's got
he's got to
CB
go take his
contacts
medication. Is what it
from
is.
California to Australia. So Chuck was a pretty serious CBer back in the day.
I gotta say, and I have a mini rant. Somebody was posting CB pictures. I think it was Side Boom in one of the Discords yesterday.
How
Why
dare.
are CB so much cooler looking than mobile ham radios? That's it. He's posting a Striker or something. I don't know because I don't have a CB. And that thing had every button was like blue white LEDs, and I'm like,
Yeah, they do look cool.
that is badass. I want one, but I don't want a
Because
CB.
they sell them at
'cause
truck
that's-
stops. That's why.
Man, I know the old lady is going. She's out today. She's going to a college football game. so she's not under my skin all day. I'm going to go down to the truck stop and shop CVs just to get a cool looking one. I may not hook it up to an antenna. I just like the way
You
it
just
looks.
want to power it on for
That's it.
ambiance in the shack.
Give
Put it in
it
demo
some
mode.
give it some
Well,
give it some
you never
power
saw
and-
you never saw the Duke boys operating a ham radio, so that's all I'm saying.
right.
And there goes the show.
Marvin is asking where did ABR come from?
American built and reliable.
Okay.
Yes, my last name does start with an ABR as well, but that's not where it came from. But yeah, it's American built and reliable.
Oh, I thought you were American built and reliable. That's
I am American built. I don't know about reliable. Someday I'll sleep on.
These are some interesting questions we're getting here. Why is the tip of the PL259 tapered?
So
For
the reason why it's
insertion?
tapered is actually to help improve on the frequency response.
Oh,
Original PL259s capped out at 300 meg, and then the Viswar started to really ramp up and creep up to kind of combat that a little bit. And this was led by Amphenol. Back in the early 2000s, they created a little bit of an alliance to look at the different connectors. And we were tapering pins on BNCs, and somebody said, why can't we do it on the UHF ones? So give it a try. And when we did that, we found the Viswar held up a little bit better, up to about 500 meg. So it was kind of an improvement that was done to it. So that's
very
why-
good. Cool. I just thought it was just to make it easier to mate up with the female connector, but
Yeah, I mean, the female, the way it's conical and it's bladed, is a tough connector to mate up to. You know, I'll be honest with everybody. If I had my druthers, end connectors in this world would be a really solid, better connector. It's the same size as the PL. It's pretty much performance-wise, it's quote unquote overkill at HF, but there's so much equipment that's done with the UHF connectors, you know, the PL types, that it'd be a cultural thing at the radio manufacturers to even change.
right.
It's hard to
Right.
get past the culture with hams.
Right. I don't need no USB connection on my radio, and take out this solid state SDR garbage. I want some heterodyne tubes in here.
this VNA's got end connectors on it.
Yeah.
But if you go ahead and you crack it open, these end connectors terminate into SMA connectors inside.
Yeah.
Get
that's
out of
cheesy.
town.
That is so cheesy.
Yeah.
Which brand is that, so we stay away from it?
Actually, this is a pretty nice one. See if I can get it to power up. It's
Is that
the,
your is that
it's
your
the
fancy?
it's the SV
Yeah.
4401A. I love
I just
it.
expect more out of them.
And I
For
left
as
it,
much
I
as
left
that
it
thing
on.
sells for, I'd have figured they'd have had real connections inside.
Yeah, well, I didn't know it, and then I was looking at them online. Somebody did a disassembly of it, and I was like, "What?"
Well, Lee is starting a war here. Lee's on a holy war right now. PL259 is better than BNC. He's willing to die on this battlefield.
So from a power standpoint, yes. The one nice thing about the BNC is because of the way the bayonet connects, it's an easier connection to directly fit into it, and the impedance holds a little bit better. You know, it's probably more debatable. I mean, honestly speaking, BNCs, the nice thing about seeing them is they're easy to snap on, snap off, and away people go. And they're pretty popular. I mean, they were dying off for the longest time. I mean, HTs had BNCs forever and a day, and then they switched to SMAs, and we thought that business from the ham side was going to get killed off. But I guess reasonably speaking, now it's got a resurgence.
And can't make up their mind, Chuck, whether they're female SMA or male SMA on the HT.
Oh, that was a government thing. Like, the government didn't want you to easily be able to change the antenna on your radio, so Motorola came up with reverse SMA. It's not technically female.
So
Right. Well, yeah.
well, the SMA females were more of a Asian thing.
Okay.
And that was the reverse SMA, the reverse polarity connectors. Yes, the government didn't want you to confuse the two connections, so they did it on the reverse N-type connectors of all things when it first started. Well, that was kludgy, so they decided to make it smaller, and they turned to the TNC products that became a little kludgy based on the devices as they got smaller. So they made the reverse SMAs.
So the government is trying to help, is what you're saying.
Well, they got in the middle of something that just made it harder because it's hard enough to explain connector genders to people in the beginning.
Right.
Based on the center pin, right?
Right.
Well, everybody looks at the way plumbing is and everything else. It's based on the fitting or the body. So it's counterintuitive.
Indeed it is.
It really confuses people big time. It's always kind of on the connector side, one of the tougher things to sometimes get to people to understand, especially if they're in those businesses, plumbers. I mean, it's like, oh, it should fit like this. It doesn't.
No, plumbing fittings are the worst. You thought ham fittings were bad. Plumbers have about 1.5 million fittings. Hams only have 1 million.
Yeah.
I see some equipment over your shoulder there. What kind of gear you're rocking in the shack?
That is a Flex.
Oh, yes.
There you go.
Suck it, Hermes.
Yeah, so a little bit of a Flex, and then amplifiers hidden in the background there. But
excellent.
And then I have a stepper. It is a flagpole in the backyard.
A stepper on
nice.
a flagpole. Is it the horizontal, or is it you got it vertical?
It's vertical, and I've done it up a little bit to fake it out as a flagpole because I live in an HOA. So
Can be done.
And thankfully, being in a cul-de-sac and a very patient wife, she took a look at it for a while and said, "I don't like it." And then I threw a Bears flag on there, like I told you guys, I'm from
Bears,
Chicago, and you want to be okay. So, yeah.
Very nice. What amp? Have you got the Flex amp?
I do not have the Flex amp here. I still have the Meritron, the 600 watt
Okay.
guy.
Yeah, I've got one of those too.
That wound up being pretty clean. I was happy. At the office, I kind of drug in a few things. We got a Yaesu and an ICOM sitting around in there, 7300, and then the Yaesu and the stuff. Since we've moved, we haven't been able to put up antennas at the new building yet. So, but we'll probably set some stuff up over there too.
I'm going to go play Ham Shack radio here while I'm at work. Awesome.
Got to test the cable, right?
Product testing.
It's awful, right? Because you set up the Flex on the internet, and I'm listening to it in the background as somebody's trying to talk to me, and then all of a sudden the call dings up on one of the services, and it's like I gotta go.
Yep. I might or might not FT8 frequently all day during the day.
Well,
and I do the
else.
network stuff too. So even if it's up on a screen, my boss would see it and think it's like something with the firewall or whatever. Yeah, it's the firewall. It's our throughput right now in packets per quadrasecond. I just made that up.
Right. So when you're testing out product, do you need to use a different license than your ham license?
Not necessarily. Most of the testing is low. So it doesn't really require, it's not an FCC issue as much for some of it. Some of the ham stuff, yeah. And we have a couple of licenses set up for the company and stuff like that too. At the company just because we're hams and stuff. So we do have a ham license, but we also have a couple of commercial licenses for some testing as well. Just depends on how much power I'm putting through and what I'm connecting it to.
What kind of power can you run on your commercial licenses?
We try to limit it just to 1,000 watts. Just because we've got some friends in the broadcast side. If we're interested, we'll get it in their hand and stuff. Because we run the high pot tester, believe it or not, though, if they're running that to some of the heavier plenum cable, the Teflon cables, I can see it on the TDR when they're running 25 kW. For a few milliseconds, you see a nice little blip go across the TDR. So, but beyond that, yeah, we try to be as conservative as possible. Unfortunately, a lot of building owners in the new building, we've got some nice owners, but they don't get it. When we talked about the antennas, the first word was, "Oh, we don't want no CBers around here." No, we won't.
Good, we're not.
That's not a problem. Don't worry about that.
Yep. Yep.
Neither,
So
neither do some of our customers. So.
break that last one down for me like I'm in 5th grade. You said 2,500 watts and you see a blip on the TDR.
25 kW.
Unpack that one.
Yeah. So
Yeah, kW.
the TDR's
Kilowatts.
housing isn't the greatest, and when the capacitance charges up, it bleeds over and it creates a common mode effect. And so we see a little bit on the voltage line, which we've wound up filtering out and for the longest time. And then as it does its 2 millisecond blip, I can usually see it sweep across the screen because it just bleeds right over and it radiates the cable, which then acts as an antenna. And even though it's about 100 yards away from me, it's still not quite far enough.
So when you say the TDR, you're talking about the time domain reflectometer, and that you're measuring the velocity factor and the length of the cable. And
we're checking another piece of cable, or I'm checking against. Yeah, so I can sometimes pick up the signal that it's putting out across the other tester.
Yeah, and just so
Right.
the folks watching know, you can do TDR measurements with an NOVNA.
You can also do them with a rig expert, Cletus.
So it sounds like what you're saying, if I'm hearing you correctly, is you've got a piece of cable under test, and you can actually hear the test signal on another piece of equipment, and that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, the testers that we have are so sensitive. They can pick up quite a bit. We can also hear, things go by with people's cell phones and other devices. When we set it to the right frequencies, you can at least see the signal. Obviously, decoding it is a whole other issue, but we can see sometimes with the sensitivity. And then we do sometimes connected testing with antennas. So then specifically, we can see what's going on there too.
Excellent.
So it's like working on a glorified SDR.
Yeah. We got a couple of minutes left here, Chuck. Any parting words you want to say? Any promotions or discounts you want to make, or anything you want to sell here?
We will start a holiday promotion. So we do have on our site, if you sign up on the website, our holiday promotions will start kicking into gear here in the next 2 weeks. They're pretty much a lot of open-ended pieces. So I know we're doing a 10% discount across the board, but we've got a couple of other things we'll probably do some side promotions on as well. And so, please, enjoy those things. We, more than happy to kind of do some other specials. We've done some things on shows and things that we'll kind of introduce through the website here also. And the other reason why is we're going to kind of look towards some fixed products that we've been having some recommendations from people on, some of the hams and stuff, to make it easier to find. So we'll kind of do other discounts and stuff in there too. So it's kind of a little nebulous, but the across the board promotion is a definite go. We're just looking at the individual products and seeing about some inventory turns, stuff like that. So
all right. So ABRIND.com is where you want to go to see those discounts. What were you going to say, Jim?
I have a cable specific question I want to ask the man before he leaves the show. That I'm gonna use my host privilege. Well, you go to the bathroom again. It's fine.
No,
we
I'm
won't
just
miss
saying,
you.
Rambling on.
Yeah. All right. I want to replace my RG213 run to my antenna. It's about 125 feet. What is my best option? That's not nuclear overkill, but good.
I'd say your
1,500 watts.
next one is the and you're running
at full legal potentially.
Right. The 400 flex.
That's what I'm figuring. Okay.
That'd be the best, because you're going up there, you're going to the tower. I'm assuming tri-band are up there.
No, DX Commander.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
DX Commander.
Yeah. So, but
Jim is so committed to Flex. He bleeds Flex Blue when you prick him. He's got the Flex radio, the Flex
I'm
tuner,
not committed,
the Flex
son.
amplifier,
I'm invested.
and
at this point, I'm invested.
now
I either
he's
have
getting
to
Flex
sell my
coax.
child or sell the radio, and she's high maintenance, so I don't know. I'm still making that decision.
Right. Keith Herzog, you're here just in time to say good morning, and we're here just in time for the end of the show. Chuck, you've been a fantastic guest. ABRIND.com to get your ABR Industries coax, and I like that bright yellow coax wrapper that you've got on the product page there. Now, thank you very much, Chuck.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks for being here, and thanks
Chuck,
everybody. in
great
chat.
show. Thank you.
You be well.